Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to be taking a look at a Ratlock deck from the 2005 format. Now, starting off here, let's talk a little bit about what a Ratlock deck is. Essentially, it's all based around Raticate from Fire Red, Leaf Green, and the pickup attack, which is search your discard pile for a Pokemon, a trainer, and then an energy card. Obviously, the strongest of which being the trainer. The main idea of the deck is you do a whole bunch of annoying things to your opponent, but essentially you let them take a prize, and then you rely on cards like POW Hand Extension to try to lock something in the active spot that's not going to be able to hurt you. And then you constantly just loop and cycle that POW until your opponent runs out of options. Now, how do we actually win the game? And that's all going to be based around Camperupt, where we use the split bomb attack to put 30 damage on two of our opponent's Pokemon. And then we essentially just lock something in the active spot. They can't do anything to hurt us, and then we just split bomb the rest of their board until we win the game. This is one of those decks where you're going to be losing. Oh, I won. You're always going to play from behind with this deck because you want to take advantage of cards like POW Hand Extension and then Scramble Energy. Now, before we really get into the deck profile, to give a little bit of credit, the list and the deck, and I'm even going to say the concept, are all mine. But essentially where I got the ideas from was Ratlock sees a lot of, not a lot of, but it's kind of a niche pick in the RS to PK format. It was popularized by a guy named Eric Reed, so I'll give a shout out to him. He absolutely loves playing Raticate in that format. And then probably about a year or so ago, there was a guy named Dan Z that was trying to build like a Minim control deck in the 2005 format, just based around Minim and POW Hand Extension. And after seeing the success of Camperupt in the 2000 in RS to PK, I tried a Camperupt deck in the 2005 format without much success. So I kind of had a couple of things click for me, and it was basically Raticate's good, Camperupt has possibilities, and that there is some potential to abuse POW Hand Extension in the 2005 format, especially since there really isn't any sort of actual energy recovery in the format. You don't have like a Super Odd. There's no energy conservative cards like Holin's Magneton where you're bouncing in energy and getting free energy. They're just, once an energy card hits a discard pile, in most decks, in most situations, it's just going to stay there. So to jump into the deck a little bit, Raticate just fits perfectly. The Rata has that call for family attack, adds a little bit of consistency to the deck. The low hit points are fine. It's not going to get knocked out on the first turn, and it's not uncommon in the format to take a couple of turns before your opponent puts any sort of serious pressure on you. Raticate, the pickup attack is obviously going to be the main thing of the deck. I will say, for a single energy, quick attack can offer some pretty solid damage. You're very rarely ever going to use it, but it is kind of an interesting fact in there. And then the thick skin, I think, is what really gives this deck more steam than a Minim control style deck, because one of the biggest challenges to playing these style of decks is going to be Nidoqueen and Toxic, and you see it a lot when, and that's why Nidoqueen did so well in the 2005 format, is you were able to take something like a Medicham EX and you were able to Toxic, and they either had to retreat out of it, waste the energy, and put themselves behind, or they were going to take 60 damage and once they end their turn, they're going to take a total of 60 damage by the time it comes back around. It's kind of the same thing with Minim. That was a big kind of hard thing for Minim to overcome, was that Toxic. Raticate, that Toxic will not affect it. It also has free retreat, so it's really easy to switch between Raticates. It is worth noting that Battle Frontier will shut off that thick skin, but even in that situation, you just retreat between two Raticates and they're only hitting you for 20. The Nummel is fantastic. That Kindle attack in general is another thing that really makes the deck work. Originally, I had Shuppet in the deck, but I needed a way to win the game, and then Camperupt offered us the way to win the game, and then Nummel was just an amazing addition because it also had that ability to remove energy. So if your opponent has something in the active spot with, like, let's say 2 or 3 energy on it, you can POW one, you can Kindle, discard another, You losing the energy doesn't really mean anything, obviously, because of Raticate, and then you can always back burner if you have to as well. Camperupt is going to be the win condition in the deck. It's got a pretty solid 90 HP for a stage 1, and that split bomb is awesome. And then there's going to be some very niche situations where you can use back burner. It's going to be much rarer in this deck because A, we play a lower fire energy count. We only play 7. And then 2, Raticate is going to constantly be taking them out of the discard piles. So it's not going to be as common as you see in the RSTPK format, but it can still be very strong in the right situations. Jirachi, Wishing Star. Niche situations, you're going to be able to metallic blow, but essentially you got it for the Wishing Star. Where if you are in a situation where you just don't have anything in your hand, you can Wishing Star and try to get a supporter, or if you need to dig for something, you need to dig for that POW, you need to dig for that ER2, you need to dig for that Rockets admin. Jirachi is going to be a great option to try to throw in the active spot and try to search those out. We also play Swoop Teleporter in the deck, so you can swoop in or out of Jirachi if need be. One of the biggest things I was looking for when I was playing the deck, or when I was building the deck, is why am I playing Raticate over Minim? And I really wanted to be able to Raticate. The main thing is you're always going to be grabbing that trainer, but I wanted there to be reasons where I'd want to grab a Pokemon back, and then reasons I wanted to grab an energy back. And that was kind of in the back of my mind when I was building this deck, and being able to take advantage of things like Swoop Teleporter without any real penalty, like if we had to swoop a Numble out or we had to swoop a Plusle out, having that easy recover for them, or being able to loop our Scramble energies. So it's just kind of a nice little niche addition to the deck. Plusle, Call for Family, gives us some options. Once again, with Swoop Teleporter, we can swoop a Numble out for a Plusle, set up from there. But the biggest addition is going to be that Positive Spark, hitting 20 damage to all of our opponent's Pokemon that have powers. Essentially, this is another thing that's going to kind of push our opponent to take that first prize. If they don't want to take that first prize against us, we're either going to have to loop, pick up an ER2 to try to remove their energy, or we just start using Positive Spark, force them to take that first prize, and then we implement our strategy from there. Slowpoke has not been great in my testing, but I felt like I needed something that was cheap and easy, that was able to put a special condition on the defending Pokemon if they were able to throw something big in our face that we couldn't deal with. My main line of thinking for it was like in the Vileplume EX matchup, we need to do something to punish them while we are trying to deal with that Vileplume EX, whether that be through Kendall or Split Bomb or whatever it is. We just needed to be able to put that special condition on them. Into the supporters, we play 4 Cielo's Network for consistency. 4 Rockets Admin is a must in any sort of come from behind deck. We want to be able to, a lot of times we're going to have a lot of prizes left. Our opponents are going to have very few. Rockets Admin is going to put us at a high hand size and them at a very low hand size. And it doesn't really matter what the prize count is because we are just trying to control the game. 2 Copycat. I debated TV Reporter, but essentially, especially in the early stages of the game, just getting a new hand was much stronger than just seeing a couple of cards through TV Reporter. 2 copies of Scott. We need to be able to find Scott when we need to not only search out our stadiums, but also search out our supporters, whether that be the 1 Brinies or a Rockets Admin for the following turn. Steven's advice to draw a lot of cards. We just need to be able to find those Scotts. Brinies is multi-use card in the deck. Essentially, you can use it if you're playing against like a spread deck like Metacham EX, just to deny our opponent's prizes and keep looping it with VS Seeker and Raticate. Or we can also use it if, like, I played a game the other day where I brought Camperupt up, they hit it for 60, Brinies up the Camperupt, brought up a different Camperupt, threw a Scramble on it, and then used my Split Bomb again. You have some options where you can kind of loop that Brinies and keep looping attacks through it. 1 Steven's Advice, I do think you can kind of debate the Copycat Stevens counts. I just found Copycat to get that larger hand size better than the Stevens Advice. But still having that 1 Stevens to search off Scott or to reuse with VS Seeker is just so strong. 4 ER2, 4 POW, this is going to be the bread and butter of the deck, just trying to control our opponent's energies, just making sure they can't use any sort of meaningful attack against us. 2 Swoop Teleporters, once again, just to give a little bit of, how do I want to say it, just to open up routes of play. A lot of the time when you're playing a Raticate deck, you want to be able to have a very flexible game plan and open up those routes of play. Swoop Teleporter is very good at doing that. 2 VS Seeker, it's in there essentially. It just gives us a lot of consistency where we can loop cards like Brinies or Stevens or find that admin. And the great thing is with Raticate, we can use Raticate, use pickup, grab the VS Seeker, and then wait till the following turn to see what we actually need to get back instead of just searching out the Rockets admin or searching out the Brinias, the copycat of the Scott. One Retriever, I do think this is cuttable in the deck. It is really nice just to have that grab something back without having to use pickup for it. I do think you could turn this into like a second Stevens, a third Swoop, or even a third VS Seeker, but it's just nice to have. One ATM Rock, this is another reason that I like Raticate. It's very nice to be able to loop those ATM Rocks, especially in a format where a lot of the big decks, I shouldn't say most, I would say a lot of big decks play 4 rare candy to set up some really cool wins with Camperupt and ATM Rock. But at the same time too, also if your opponent gets some insane start where they throw down like 3 rare candies in the first couple of turns, you can kind of just check them back into, no, that's not going to happen, and kind of reset them. Stadiums, we play 3 Battle Frontier, 1 ATM Rock. The 3 Battle Frontier is obviously going to be for the Dark Dragonite, Dark Electrode, and then of course Pidgeot. We can loop those through Raticate. At the same time too, it is important to mention once again that Battle Frontier will shut off that thick skin. Not a huge issue with the Free Retreat, but it is worth mentioning. And then the 1 Team Aqua's Hideout, where if we want to try to loop something like a Jirachi in the active spot, or just make it a little bit more painful for our opponent to try to retreat, that Team Aqua's Hideout gives us those options. A lot of decks in this format play 4 stadiums, which is really nice that with Raticate you're guaranteed to win the Stadium War and you can always lock that stadium in play. Energy, we play 3 multi. This is for the Plusle, so we can use that Positive Spark, but it doesn't really make any sort of difference in the deck. Essentially, with the multi, you can still use Kindle, you can still use Slowpoke, Raticate. It opens up the Metallic Blue option. Not super common, but it is an option to have. The only thing it really hurts is that back burner, which once again is a pretty small portion of the deck. You're always going to try to just be using Camperupt and Scramble energies. And then obviously you can't use 2 multis together to fulfill the split bomb, but you can play 2 multis and a fire to still be able to use it. So 3 scrambles, great come from behind card. We're able to use that with Camperupt. We're obviously going to be trying to play from behind for the Raticate aspect and the POW aspect of the deck. And then 7 fire energies. I do think 13 energies is a little high. I think you could probably get away with 11 or 12. I just wanted the 10 turn 1 attachable energies and then the 3 scramble energies, just because we need to be able to find scramble when we need to be able to find them against decks like just against any sort of deck, because we're going to want to be able to be putting that constant early pressure on our opponent. Other than that, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.